Be like Berl. Be the good in the world. Be like Berl.
Hey everyone, welcome to our Be Like Berl podcast, where we interview teens and young adults about a tragedy, trial, or tribulation they dealt with as a child, and Jesus brought them through it by using folks in their lives who were being like Berl. Today's guest is here, but before I hand it over to Rachel, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Rachel?
All right, so welcome to today's Be Like Berl podcast. You have to know that today is going to be a two-part episode because we have a very special guest who has a lot to unpack. We have with us in the studio today Dylan Ogwin.
Woo, our first guy.
So Dylan is part of Jim's family, and we call him Dill Pickle since he was born. Him and Abby are very close in age. And so Dylan, we love you. We're happy to have you here today. And so just tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about on podcast 1.
So we're just going to talk about like the divorces that I went through and the problems that it's brought on, but also some of the good things that it's brought on, and just all the things involving divorce and the problems it brings, but the good things it could bring at the same time.
All right. So your mom and dad. So let's tell a little bit. Maybe me and Jim need to fill in this part a little bit. But your mom and dad were young when they had your older brother, still in high school. I remember driving your mom to school and having to stop on the side of the road so that she can have morning sickness issues. So that was with your older brother. So they were young when they got together. They got married, had older brother, had you. And then how old were you when they got divorced?
I was a little, I think I was just turned 2 or a little after I turned 2. So
Okay.
I don't remember much, but.
Right. Do you, where did y'all go from there? Where did y'all live?
I recall, I think, that we moved somewhere in the east, close to my soon-to-be first stepfather, I guess. And so we lived, I think, in a trailer for a little while, and then Mom got a house, and we all moved together with my next stepdad.
Okay. So we had Mom and Dad got divorced. Mom got married pretty quick.
I think it was like a year or something afterward.
Okay. And then Dad got remarried too, but how?
I think it was like a year and a half, so not much, or right around the same time.
Okay. So you were 2. I know you were young, but
Yeah.
But what are some things that you do remember?
So I remember, I don't remember them together at all because I was so young, but I definitely remember the start of the next relationships, or I even remember my dad asking me if he thought my next stepmom was going to be the right one, or the one that, would be right for him and for us. And I remember saying, yeah, and talking to him about all that. And I remember my mom and all of us going to, games and Predators games and stuff with my stepdad, and when I was really young, and living together and being a family and stuff like that too, going to church and stuff like that.
Did you always feel like you had 2 complete families, but 2 different families?
Sometimes I felt like I did. I had a complete family, but it was obviously weird because, I never really seen them together, my mom and my dad, so it wasn't I felt like we were split apart because it was always like that. But I definitely did feel at times that I had 2 complete families that were, treating everybody right and everything going good. And there was times that it wasn't, but there was times it was good. Okay.
So how long was Mom married, and then you guys went through another divorce?
I think it was 6 years, something like that.
Okay.
Around 6 years.
So you were big enough to remember that one?
Yes. It was, I remember they had been having, arguments and fights and stuff, and I remember all those things, a lot of disagreements. And then I remember, coming home one day, and I was I noticed some things were gone and moved around in my room, and I'm I don't know what's going on, I was so young, and then, Mom was okay, we're splitting up, and we left and moved in with my mamaw for a little while and stayed with her that night. But I remember it was very emotional because he's the only other dad I knew other than my actual dad, and I had spent most of my time with them because I went every other weekend to my dad's. Right. But I was with them mostly. So it was definitely weird and kind of losing somebody really close to. But at the same time, I think it was for the right thing, and I knew that. But it was
Right.
very confusing because I was so young.
So it's almost like this was almost your first divorce going through, as
Yes.
far as really having that emotional tie to a divorce, because you, like you said, you were so young when your mom and dad divorced. So
And y'all did a lot of family stuff
Yes.
together, right?
Yes, we did. We went to a lot of. They were season ticket holders for the Predators for a while, so we went to a lot of Preds games together. We went to church, every Wednesday and Sunday, and we were very, in the church, and
Right.
it was we done a lot of things together. Went out all the time, had family friends. It was went to a bunch of winter jams, stuff like that. We were very tight knit, I would say.
So, do you remember conversations with your older brother about?
Yes.
Did he ever talk about the first?
Yes, some, but I don't really remember too
he
much of him
was
talking about it. But he was like,
6,
I think 7 or 8.
7.
So, but yeah, he was young too. But we never really talked about that much. It was just a lot about where we're at in the moment. Or I don't remember it. If I
Right.
did, but
Did so tell us about, like, everybody always says, well, you get 2 Christmases, but, like, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
so it was. I mean, if some people may lean towards like the presents and stuff, but I just like being with family and stuff. And presents were fun. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of like I'm big in the family and the real meaning around Christmas and everything. So it was definitely, I guess you could say it has its perks, but it was more of like, I wish everybody could just be together.
Right.
And I remember like one thing for sure is I was at my dad's for my birthdays when I was younger. And I remember my dad was like, somebody special's coming over. And I was like, I didn't know who it was. I was just clueless because I didn't think it'd be mom. And I remember I went outside and it was like, they were, were all both with their new husband and wife. And I seen mom pulling up the driveway and I was like so pumped because I was like, mom and my dad was never together. I never seen them together. So her coming over and like watching me blow out my candles and stuff like that, like really meant something to me and like was a great moment, I would say.
Yeah, that makes me want to cry.
Well, I mean, I never even. You just don't dawn. It just doesn't dawn on me because we've been through every step, with them, with Val, his mom. But to think of it like that is because he just said, "I've never seen them together." Mm-hmm.
And we remember them together.
Right, and it's so it's amazing, and your story is amazing. There's so many other kids that. I mean, just that statement right there. I've never seen mom and dad together. Is a very powerful statement. I mean,
It was like I'd seen them at the drop offs and going back and forth and stuff. But like as sitting in a room and like being with each other and like breathing the same air and really staying there for a while and both like having attention on me in the moment was like never really happened much.
Right.
When I was young.
I feel like you see out and about, just thinking about other kids that I know whose parents are divorced, it is rare that you see, the families together. But I feel like sometimes here lately, I've seen more families that are maybe starting to, maybe get over themselves a little bit or come together
For the kids
just for
and
the
stuff,
kids
yeah.
or whatever. So I love that you have that special birthday memory. Do you know how old you were when that happened?
I would say I was like 7, maybe 8, somewhere around there.
That's precious. What a good little memory that you have, though, that they came together to make that birthday special for you. And I guess we should also say on here that we have no ill will towards any of them. We love your mom and your dad, right? I mean, we
100%.
grew up with them and loved them both.
well, the funny thing is, just taking a little sidetrack, is with his dad. When the memory that I have the most, that I laugh the most about, is when Valerie, Dylan's mom, got pregnant. It was a teenage pregnancy, and it was in high school, and and Valerie and I are so close. I mean, we're like brothers and sisters. I wanted to just Derek, whenever it happened, and I remember seeing them at what was that? Was we at a ball game?
Probably.
And I went over to him, I think, and he looked at me, and of course he kind of stepped back. He thought, "Oh Lord, is Jim fixing to hit me?" But it was just, "Hey man, you it's happened, so you gotta, you have to step up and take care of business." And of course he did, and but that's a funny memory. But that is something I always think about, is they did start as a family so young, which probably I would say affected a lot of what
And
they went
so
through.
they're also, and you could talk a little bit about this now, I think would be appropriate, but your mom had a tragedy that probably affected her as an adult. And so that's going to play into probably this part one and your part two, if you want to go ahead and tell the audience what we're talking about.
So whenever my mom was 7, my biological grandfather was murdered because of just disagreements and about, just love and a bunch of different problems like that. But he was shot in the back and killed. So that definitely completely changed Mom's life completely. Like, I even talk to her even now about things, and she's just like, I remember things about him, but it's like, slowly stuff fades, and she don't really remember much about her biological dad. So it's hard hearing that from her, because it's like, I have my dad that I know, and he's like such a vital part of my life. It's like, I just couldn't imagine,
Right.
going through something like that so young. And
Right.
I remember. I'll always remember her because I was let's see, I was 11, I think, when that happened, and I remember your mom being so young, and I remember one specific moment that always will stick in my head is they were at our house, and this was a little bit later, and I couldn't find Val anywhere. And I was like, what in the world? Where did she went? And she was hiding in a closet, and just, she was just off to herself, just crying, just so upset. And it was a very, very hard, because it's 7 years old. I mean, that's your dad's your hero, at that point. So it was something very, very critical in Val's life that did put her on a path, and her mom, Dylan's grandma. It definitely put them on a different path. Their life changed dramatically after that.
Yeah, and you would never know it meeting your mama, because she's just like talking to cotton candy, and she loves everybody and wants to help everybody. But man, she has a trauma that she's still working through, probably to this day, that has probably affected stuff. So mom and dad divorced. Mom gets remarried and gets divorced. And then what happens after that?
After that, so my mom, we moved out. We went to a couple different places. She's trying to get out of the divorce and stay financially stable and make sure we have a place we can go to and make sure we have everything we need to keep going through life. So that was definitely hard for her. We went to a bunch of different places. We even stayed with y'all for a little
in
while.
this house.
For a little while.
So
So it's definitely like, but one thing I will say is, like, Mom made it, everything was, she tried to make everything good or have it positive. So, like, I mean, I remember after we bounced around a couple different places, and she always made sure, like, we were safe, and it was always like people we loved, like y'all and family and stuff. And then we ended up moving and renting a place in Centerville, and a little house, and it was like so much fun. Every night, Mom always came home. We all came home from school, and we'd go to the park or do something fun. And it was like taking a bad time and making it a good time, because Mom just made it special for us as kids. So that was definitely.
She is going to watch this in school.
She's not. I don't know. It'll take her 6 hours to watch this podcast, so she'll have to stop.
And I will say, sometimes, like, me and Luke, my older brother, we get into it like all the time when we were younger. So
Yes,
it's
did.
definitely hard
Yes, you
for her, like 100% having to deal with it by herself. So there was times like she had to end up like calling my dad, like, hey, we got to figure something out, because this is just so hard with just having us. So there was definitely trials for that with her too, and all of us just being young, and you just got your mom, so you think you can say this, you think you can say that, and it's like, just as a kid, she handled it so well, I think, and we try to handle it well too, but without her and her being positive, it would have been harder. But,
Right. And I like what you said there about Mom always made sure that you guys were, even when you were kind of having to bounce around, that you were somewhere safe
Oh, yes.
and somewhere with family or somewhere that you were loved. Because a lot of kids probably don't get to experience that safety net of that, of the bouncing around. And so I love that she made sure of that. And it speaks, I think, for people that she had supporting her, your mama and, your nana and all that. But I love that you said that she kept you somewhere safe. And I feel like your podcast is probably going to speak to, if we talked about number of kids, your podcast is probably going to speak to more kids as a general term than what some of these other podcasts are, because the divorce rate is so high. I mean, Abby's was a medical procedure and Lindy lost her sister, but like yours is going to be about divorce here. And so a lot of kids are going to hear that. And I love how your mom, maybe there's going to be a mom listening that's going to say, man, I could just build simple, free memories, going to the park, hanging out with my kids, doing stuff like that.
Well, and he said something too, Dylan. You said that when you and Luke were having going at each other, she would talk to your dad, and they did.
Yes,
there a lot of ups and downs, of course. I mean, it's always going to be the way it is, but they co-parented fairly well. I mean, they did they communicated with each other, the best they could. Of course, like I said, things were up and down. Things are hard, and they always are, and awkward, and everything else. But both of them absolutely love you too.
And your dad expected you to respect your mom too, like
100%.
that, I think that's a key. There is like your dad didn't let their relationship or their divorce affect the way he expected y'all to treat your mama, and that's important in this.
And the other way too, Val wanted the boys to love their dad.
Right? Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely. That's one thing definitely I will say is like at each other's houses, you never hear like something necessarily bad about the other parent. Like they try to just, keep that down. If we ever ask questions or stuff, they'd answer it truthfully, but it wasn't like, ever like bashing the other one. It was always, that's your parent, no matter what, you love them. Even if I tell you this, you got to love them because, everybody makes mistakes and there's always problems that go on. But like I said, they were young and everything went down like that. So I think that also helped them being able to heal from it is because they realized, we were just so young. So like I said, I remember times whenever she'd call him up and he'd be like, all right, I'm coming on that way. I'm going to come get you if you don't straighten up. And we're like, okay. So we'd straighten up, and I think that definitely helped. But like you said about like going to a safe place, I feel like that's another thing with like having family, because like Mom probably could have put us somewhere with what she had, but she probably figured it'd be safer and give her some more time to, get in a financial place to where she can put us somewhere nice and, necessarily we're still in a safe place and still building great memories. Like when we lived with y'all, we had great memories of, hanging out with Abby and Bella and everybody. And it was all great. I mean,
was that the Grinch spaghetti?
No,
that was.
He didn't live with us then.
No, I wouldn't live with y'all then, but that was a good memory too.
I do think that God placed you guys here when you were here with us. Your whole your family was with us, because that was the same time that we got Way, and it was just a God thing, because there were all you three boys were out of place, right? He was out of place, y'all were out of place. Your mom was here, and so we didn't even like have to worry about adapting to Waylon, because we were adapting to three boys and mama, but it also gave your mom time to drive home from work because I was here, and it just. Man, what a special 7 months with you guys.
It was great. It was so funny, and me and Rach talk about this a lot when we talk about memories and when y'all were here. Is it the dynamic where it was just us four, me, Mama, the two girls, and then all of a sudden, boom! I mean, it's like there's so many of us, and it was wild to say the least, but it was so fun, and it was it's one of my favorite memories. Looking back on as hectic as it was, and we was trying to make things work and get everybody here and all these moving parts, but we
loved having y'all.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And like you said with Waylon down there, Luke and him was definitely like super tight, and we were all super tight together. And Waylon's always fun, so we always had big times getting into stuff, and we'd build forts and do the little things like that. But it was always great late night goofy conversations, just staying with each other. So it was, like I said, it was hard times that you can turn a hard time into a good time. You just got to think positively, I think, and have somebody strong willed and that's also positive to look up to.
Yeah. And you've got to find those, I think as adults, we have to find those moments and just push through it and kind of find something good to do, something fun to do, even if it's free, something to do. But as kids, you guys have to do it. Like you have to participate in it and not just kind of sit on the sideline and be like, no, I'm going to be mad and grumpy. And that wasn't your personality at all.
No, we had a lot of fun
Usually you were
times.
like life of the party. Like,
oh, Lord. Yeah. He was class clown for sure. Which is because he was just like his mama. Luke it's always just like Derek. I mean, it was what was so funny. But Val, when she was that age, was just, man, the spunk and the bouncing around and the full of energy and hyperactivity. It's ridiculous how much like your mama you are and were then when you were young. So
the point of the podcast is to tell us people who were being like Berl. So someone who was, kind, truthful, offered love and support to you. And you don't have to name drop if you don't want to, but who are some people when you were going through those divorces and those situations with family life that you found that were being like Berl?
So I definitely thank my mom, my dad, obviously. They always, like I said, make sure we were safe and taken care of and never went against each other in certain like speaking to us and stuff. So that helped a lot. And then Luke, obviously, I would leave my mom and go to my dad's, or I would leave my dad's and go to my mom's. But no matter what, Luke was there. So it was definitely like having like a security blanket. Like if I ever needed anybody, I went to him because he's like, I'm just my older brother and he meant so much to me. So like, if I ever had a nightmare or something, I'd go wake him up and be like, hey, bub,
Yeah.
this happened. And he'd always like, be there for me no matter what. And he was always there. So being positive. And like I said, we did get into it a lot, but no matter what, we always made up, and we never like, went to bed mad at each other or anything. We always made up and it worked out like that. So I'd definitely say Luke was a big one, like Berl. And then, my mom, my dad, obviously, and I had grandparents and other, even like their significant others were there at times. They may have their problems, but they were always there for us also.
Right.
So.
And what about one of the things that you had said, a person that was being like Berl, and we're going to get into this more in the next podcast, I know, but was Papa Tim was your Berl a lot of times.
100%.
And what was he always doing for you guys?
I mean, we would go, just a little story, but we would go camping at like Nathan Bedford State Park or just different state parks and stuff. And we would go with Nana and my Papa Tim, and everybody would go together. And you want to talk about like just random jokes all the time. We would, whether it was like a little immature like fart noise or something, it did not matter. Like, and he didn't care who was in front of. I remember one time they have like at those campgrounds, they have like bathhouses and like showers, we go in there and take showers. And there was a bunch of other people in there, but nobody knew where it was coming from. But I was sitting there and I was taking a shower, and all of a sudden all I hear is this loud like fart noise. And I'm like, what in the world? And it automatically hit me. I'm like, that is Papa Tim. And I started rolling. You could hear him giggling next to me, and Luke's giggling on the other side. And I'm like, just stuff like that. Like,
and I gotta say, for context, so Dylan's Papa Tim that he's talking about is the man that married my Aunt Bev, his grandmother, back a few years ago, who Bev herself had went through divorces, and which is Val's mom, and then she ended up finding Papa Tim, which is my Uncle Buck, which of course, if anybody knows in the book, Officer Buck, that is who that is. So just for reference, that is who Papa Tim is.
That's
so
who you dropped your pocket.
Yeah, you dropped your pocket.
That was a big one too.
Absolutely where that comes from.
Or the little gotcha sign and stuff like that. It was, all the time something. Or he would be big about like hey, look over there, an elephant. Obviously there's no elephant there, obviously. But
you'd look.
And he'd be like, gotcha. And I'm like, man. But it was so funny. And I definitely picked up on all those little things and would do it to everybody. And it's just like those things can brighten your day. And he definitely was one to brighten everybody's day. So
did you find that easy when you say you picked up on his little things? Did that then... did you find that as a way to cheer other people up?
Oh, yes. 100%. It was definitely sometimes, some people didn't like, I feel like those little things are something that's not going to upset somebody,
Right.
It's the small things that can make such a big difference in somebody's day. So, or like he was big about like, opening a door or being courteous towards somebody, and, open the door for somebody. It makes you feel good when you do something funny. So, or something good for somebody. So a little drop in your pocket, that's not going to hurt anybody. And they look down, they giggle, and it could be anybody, somebody random. But those little things definitely was a way that I thought, I could make a difference. And it made me feel like I made a difference whenever, somebody would giggle or something, because I was being like Papa Tim,
Right. Gotcha. All right. So we've talked about how some people were being like Berl in your life, and you mentioned mom, dad, Papa Tim, your brother, which I think is so precious. So walk us through after mom and dad got divorced, and then mom married someone, and then they got divorced. What happened after that? Y'all were kind of living in these places that, were family, and you got a house in Centerville. What happened after that?
So then it goes back to my Papa Tim and Nana out there. They have a little campground spot on the Tennessee River. And I remember we would go down there, and like I said, everything was just me, Mom, and Luke. And we went down to the campground one night, and we were over in a little cove on the river, and a little boat pulled up, like a flat bottom boat. And I remember looking over, and it was a camouflage boat with a man in it, and he had a camouflage hat on. And I was like, who's that? And he just pulled up like he knew us, and I had no clue who he was. And then well, that's one time we met him. Super good guy. Didn't know anything, in the moment. And then, a couple more times we went down to the river. I would see him together and stuff like that. And another funny story is whenever we lived and rented that house I was talking about in Centerville, Mom's phone rang, and it said JW on it. And I thought it was one of our friends. So I picked it up and I answered it. And I was like, "What's up, girl?" and he was like, "Hello?" And I was like, and I ran over to Mom. I was like, "I don't know who this is," but I thought it was this person. And she's like, "No, that's not them." And then didn't say much about it. And I was like, "That's weird." She tells me about that type of stuff. And that was the moment whenever she was like, trying to make sure that he was definitely the one to bring into our lives and stuff. And then that's whenever Jesse is what ended up being the person that I didn't know. I didn't know JW was the one that was in the boat that pulled up. But she started bringing him around some, and we started seeing each other, and it was great from the get-go. He was always super nice and was definitely like another big father figure to me and Luke, 100%. Well, he ended up he was renting a spot because he had just went through a divorce, and he was renting a place in Centerville too. So Mom stopped renting there and then went over to go, we lived in another spot for a little while they were dating. And then after they'd been dating for a good little while, we moved in with him at the spot he was renting in a little apartment. And it was great times then. I mean, it was like another family feeling, having the father figure there at that house, and, always making sure we were safe and we were good. We needed anything. He was very smart with like teaching us stuff that we didn't know about, like mechanically or anything. It was always like good times with him too. So
good. So I love that he is a good man, and he did love y'all. He loves y'all so much. So I love that you keep talking and you keep saying the same thing over about family. Mm-hmm. Like that's seems to be super important to you. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of kids are going to relate to like, man, that family feeling.
Well, and it's such an important reminder of the importance of the family unit, right? And even when that family splits up, even when families are different, and you've got single mom families, single dad families, it all looks different. But you had just mentioned how strong your mom was, but how you've had these father figures in your life, because your dad couldn't be there all the time because they wasn't together. But then you've had others that, especially as a boy, to be able to have that father figure, that male there, and then also have the mom. So I mean, it's still in, it just shows the importance of being able to have both a male and female, figure in your life, because there's different perspectives,
And even when the families are split up, how important it is to keep that family feeling.
And being able to co-parent and being able to say, look, we've got to make sure that these kids can grow up and be able to be fully functioning and understand life and deal with life, and that's how just important that family unit is.
So what are some words of wisdom or encouragement would you like to talk to people and tell kids that are going through a situation like you? What are some things you want to talk about?
I think it's definitely like, no matter what, realize, like when your parents are going through something hard like that, they're obviously human. They're going to make mistakes. And I think don't be quick to judge, because, they're like, your rock and everything. But sometimes stuff's going to happen to where you may think they're doing something wrong, or they're doing something that you don't like. But in the moment, and when you get older, you'll look back and be like, okay, that's what they needed to do. Because, I was confused through all the moves and everything, but Mom done that so we could eventually be in a stable place. So definitely and staying positive, 100%. Like I said, Mom really helped with that, and my dad really helped with that, the positive thing. But staying positive through everything, and we were in the church and stuff, so God definitely gets you through things. And Mom would always, we pray before dinner, and I would pray before bed and stuff like that. And it gets you through things that you would never know that it could.
Feel like there's somebody on your side that's much bigger than you or your situation.
And fishing. I think, definitely Dill Pickle's probably his biggest love, his number one love is probably rod and reel, I would imagine.
100%.
But I'm sure that did help you through some tough times, being able to fish and, cling to something that you enjoy doing.
That's one thing too. When I was younger, when I was with my dad, which I only went every other week, so it wasn't that much, but hunting and fishing was definitely a big thing. But I didn't get to see him as much, so it didn't mean that much to me at the moment. But as I got older, around the time whenever Jesse came into my life and everything, is whenever I started going, like really taken on fishing because he liked fishing too. And my Papa Tim, huge fisherman, so I'd go fishing with him.
Crappie man,
big crappie guy. So that really helped a lot of things too. I think it's just finding something that can interest you too definitely helps through times like that.
Right. And you were so blessed to have parents who always put your best interest forward. And not all kids will have that situation. You know, a lot of parents don't, right? It's all about them, and they don't they're more selfish than what your parents were, especially your mom and everything. But
and that's when I think, because you see that so much in today's society, right? And I think that's where uncles become so important, and grandfathers and aunts and grandmothers and brothers and sisters, and these other people become so important.
Church family.
And church family, absolutely.
So any thoughts of like what not to do? Like if you were going to tell a kid, hey, don't do this. Any thoughts of like not to do? Any wisdom there?
I think don't try, like, say, like, this thing happens. I think it happens a lot whenever a divorce or something happens. Like, don't blame it on yourself. You know, a lot of kids are like, they split because of me or something that I done. They automatically go to thinking, my parents, the rock, and they're perfect. But so it had to be something involving me. But really, it's not always you. It could involve a little bit of you, but it's not always you.
It's not your fault.
I think that's definitely something too that kids go to pointing fingers at themselves and they want to change themselves or change how they are or how they act, and that's not something you need to do. Be yourself and be the person you should be, no matter what.
So you said something, and I actually thought about it a while ago too. I think a lot of kids will assume when mom and dad are angry or sad that it's their fault. And then that makes them feel bad. But the anger's not directed at the child, usually. It's really at the situation that's going on over here, or the sadness is not because of the child. And that's probably, for a kid, that's probably really hard to differentiate.
Yeah, and it's really easy to get mad at the parent, but, the parent deserves grace too, because they're not going to be perfect. A mom or dad, going through something like that, I can't imagine, but I'm sure the stress levels are unbelievable, and especially when things aren't going right. So there's that struggle of and so you're angry or you're upset, and so unfortunately that might cause you to be upset at your child, but it's not anything that they did. You're just upset because you were upset because of the relationship issue that you were going on. So sometimes the parents definitely need grace, and then on the other side of that, hopefully they can realize, okay, I got to focus. I got to leave that separate. Then yes, I
feel like we should also say we do not condone poor behavior on the parents' part.
Oh, absolutely,
by any means.
Absolutely not.
I think too, one thing is, like, even with me, even though my parents, I've talked about how they always made me feel safe, and that it wasn't ever my fault or anything. They never told me at all that it was my fault, and it wasn't, ended up not being. But even like I remember looking back when I was like 8, 9 years old, and I see them like. More divorces coming, and I'm like, I think back, I'm like, I was like 2, so I was young, and maybe I was the problem that made them split because they were going good before me, and then I was like 2, and I was like, maybe it was me, and I was overwhelming them, and that's what happened. But it ended up not being like that. But it was that type of thing is like that caused a lot of stress for me when I was younger. Not a lot, but it's something I thought about,
right?
And like held a weight on me sometimes. But now I look back and I'm like, I shouldn't have thought that because it wasn't. And like I said, even if it was you're young. It's not your fault.
If you were a stressful baby, you weren't a stressful baby.
You were a problem, but you weren't the problem.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like that God has worked in your situation?
I think no matter what, I feel like a lot of times whenever you get broke down to a certain point and you feel like, everybody in your life's going through something and you don't really have anybody to look to that's not going through something, because you don't want to add more stress to people, that I always look to talk to God and be like, pray to him about things that's going on, and even just talk to him like you're talking to a friend, and that really definitely gave me somebody, because I don't want to add stress to my dad or my mom or my brother even sometimes. So he's always there, like a little person on your shoulder you can talk to, no matter what. So that definitely helped me out in moments just to get out, and and a lot of times stuff I prayed about ended up happening or stuff ended up getting better. And I think he works miracles, a lot of times.
The power of prayer, sometimes it's not even in the form of an answered prayer. Sometimes it's in the form of just being able to speak to him and get something off your chest, and him helping you find peace and joy through that. I mean, the prayer can be very powerful.
Yeah, sometimes the answered prayers are still no's, but the answer is there.
Right.
Okay, and then how do you feel like your situation with your parents' divorces has helped to shape you into the person you are today?
So it definitely puts you in some uncomfortable situations. So I feel like you overcoming that and, seeing the different sides of your parents and seeing the different sides of you because you're going through these things and all these hard times. I feel like, like those things really show you. When you get in a low point, it shows you what you can become after that moment. So I think, and even the people it brought into my life, like it brought some really good people into my life along the way. Even if it ended up not working out with my parent and that person, it brings along good people, and no matter what, you're going to get through it,
So, what about, do you think that it makes you think about, like, now you're 19 now.
I know.
You're 19 now. And so, like, you're an age where you can start thinking about getting married to somebody. Does it make you think twice about, like, finding somebody? I don't like to say the one God made for you because that kind of leaves it like, what if you don't get the one? There might be somebody else out there. But, like, you finding somebody that shares your values and your love for family and really wants to, you obviously want this big, happy family unit. That's something that you have talked about that you recognize from the beginning was something that you enjoyed. So does it make you think about who the person you're going to marry? Like, do those qualifications, that standard, a little higher now?
Yes, I do. I do think so. Like, it makes me like think, because my goal, obviously, number one goal after going through the things I went through, not that, it's not on my mom or my dad or anybody.
Right.
But going through the things I went through, I don't want to have a split family. I don't want to be a part of that and put my children through that. So it's definitely like, make sure, they're checking some of the checks and
Right.
they're checking some boxes. And I think that definitely does play a part in, like, really wanting to hear the person out and see them in their stressful moments and their times of happiness. And it's just it makes me want to see everything about them and see them in all the different situations before you think about, engagement or marriage or anything
right.
like
And
that.
so not jumping into anything like too crazy fast and like really taking the time to get to know them and be their friend first.
Yes, that definitely. Like the person I'm with now, Lindsay, we were friends a long time before we got together, and now we got together and been together almost like 3 years now. So I've definitely seen. I feel like I'm getting there with seeing all the moments and everything that I need to see to make that decision later in life.
Right.
But definitely making a friend and being their friend before you become like somebody you want to get married to or something.
And God doesn't want us to get married to get divorced. That's not. It happens, and things, relationships happen, and everybody's got their own story, and things like that happen. But it's not. That's what it wasn't designed as. Marriage is designed to be a vow and be able to last forever as long as everything works. And and it's a struggle. It's a lot of ups and downs. I mean, Rachel and I have our ups and downs, just like any married couple do, and it's a struggle. But you already going into it like saying, look. When I make this commitment, I want it to be a lifelong commitment, and then finding that one that has the same thought of it, and you're already starting in a good spot.
And it's something you're going to have to work on, right?
That's definitely like one thing too is like, but I don't think if you come from a family of divorces, like you should be like, I'm never going to get married. That's never going to happen. Because I feel like marriage is a very special thing. And I've even at some point in my life, I was like, I'm never doing that,
Right.
Never getting married. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, I see how special, like, and how much it can change somebody's life for the good getting married. So I'm like, you don't need to just, cancel that out just because your parents or somebody went through something.
Right.
I'm like, you're a different person. I feel like it's those things you can kind of learn from and be like, okay, well, if that didn't work for them, maybe I should do this and see if this different route can work for me. So I feel like you say, just getting to know them, becoming their friend, and then making sure the one's right before you make the decision.
Good grief. These kids have so much wisdom, the ones that,
I know.
on all these podcasts. It's like, y'all are not supposed to be like this at your age. But
So what does the future hold for you right now? What are we looking at? It's Dylan, the 19-year-old.
I just got a new job, so I'm excited to go through that career. Hopefully it becomes a career. So I'm doing pipe fitting and stuff like that. So it's, it's something I can see where it puts me financially in a good spot, and that's one big thing for me that I'm really looking forward to it, see where that takes me. And then, like I said, my girlfriend, we've been together for a long time. She's going through school and working at the same time also. So I'm hoping, a few years down the line or something, we can look towards the engagement and get married and stuff. So those things are definitely all made me excited for the future, something to look forward to.
And I definitely want to say hashtag Mike Rowe works.
Yeah,
because I mean that's to all the people out there that just want to snub trades.
It's where it's at now.
That's where it's at. I mean, you don't have to go to a university. There's so many organizations out there now that since Mike Rowe works and the work that he has done, that's helped promote the trades and stuff. And I'm really glad to see Dylan grab a hold of that. And a lot of these other kids now are saying, you know what, I really don't want. I want to learn a trade. I want to weld. I want to be a pipe fitter. I want to be an electrician and stuff. And it's a good future, good career.
Well, I can tell you that the divorces that you've been through and the family stuff did not seem to dampen your work ethic, because we see you mowing yards. He pulled in here with a mowing trailer on today because he's got to go back to mowing yards, and you really are a hard worker, which makes me think of your mama. I'm sure your dad is too, but that your mama for sure.
Oh man.
And so we're gonna wrap up the podcast, but we do love you so much. We're so thankful that you're here. This is going to be a to be continued episode, right?
Yeah.
Because Dylan has more to unpack.
Yep, this is a to be continued. So we'll stop right here for today's podcast. Thanks again, Dylan, for being here. We love you. Of course, we'll see you for the next one. But we look forward to seeing everybody else on our next episode. Which, reminder, it airs every other Wednesday. Remember that our Be Like Berl podcast is inspired by our book character Burl Squeever, as long as under wonderful people like Officer Buck. You can get his books by logging on to our website, burlsqueever.com, and click the purchase link up top. So everyone stay safe. Be like Berl. God bless.